Hello.
Howdy.
Good morning.
Hope everybody's doing fine.
On this beautiful Labor Day weekend.
Yes, and right off the bat, we wish to give a warning that this is going to be another sexually explicit video. There is going to be a link down below with further information. One of the clips that we grabbed off of YouTube even embarrasses Kim and I.
I can't put all of the questions that these Mormon bishops ask the kids. I just can't.
Yes.
I'm a mom and I wouldn't allow my kids to meet with a JW elder to be asked these questions.
Right. But what we're going to do is we're going to address a comment in the comment section under a video that Kim and I had recently done regarding a captured talk out of a Kingdom Hall regarding asexual matter and young ones hearing the words in this talk. So the comment is, and I'm not going to mention anybody's name, but this person says, I am a Latter-day Saint and I would never allow this kind of language to reach my children's ears. And the church would never allow anyone to have this kind of language during any church meeting, even among adults. There are certainly other ways to address these issues without being so explicit. Every time I hear the word pornography, only that word being uttered during general conference, and it is really uttered, is quite exceptional. Wow. One of the things that is perplexing about this person's comment is that he says that it would never be uttered or allow this kind of language during any church meeting, even among adults. You may not hear talks such as what Watchtower does to a general public audience, but what about in private? And this is what we're going to address.
Yeah, let me explain something. I did not know this. And it's funny how this all worked out, because I opened our Mormon file in the Beast and I was looking at talks and stuff and also a few other websites. Now our daughter Shyla, around this time, and I just happened to mention to her that, we were going to be opening our Mormon file, and she says, I have a coworker who is an ex-Mormon. And he told her that when they are young children, and I don't know at what point, they have to go in for an interview, but it is either like preteen or young teens, teenagers, they have to go into a meet with a bishop, and they are given this sex talk. They are asked very explicit sexual questions. And like I said, we have a couple of video clips here that we're going to show in a minute. And I'm going to put the link down below to both of these. And I want to thank Mormon Leaks YouTube channel, Mormon Stories YouTube channel, and Protect LDS Children YouTube channel. And Protect the Children YouTube channel, because there's an initiative by a former Mormon bishop, Sam Young, and he has started a petition, and he is going after the Mormon church leaders for these interviews.
Right, and for us ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, especially the ex-Jehovah Witness sisters that have had to face the judicial committee over immorality, these questions should not shock you, because they're pretty much
the same thing.
And it's very explicit. So for anybody from another religion to make comments regarding, you would never hear things like this in my church during a church meeting, you may not hear them publicly, but in private they are being said. And the thing that bothers me the most is the similarities between Watchtower and Jehovah's Witnesses during these private conversations. In a Jehovah Witness judicial committee, you'll have 3 elders talking to the child, preteen, maybe even teenager. Just go back and look at the Watchtower training video that's on our channel, where 3 elders interview a gentleman named
Robbie.
Robbie, and look at the similarities between those things and what your bishop would do in private to, say again, a preteen, teenager, somebody of this age. In the Watchtower Jehovah's Witness setting, these children, these minors, are not allowed to have their parents with them in the room. This is a despicable behavior because, in my opinion, and it's a very strong opinion, you parents are surrendering your God-given right to raise your own children, and you're surrendering it to what really essentially is nothing but strangers having these adult conversations with your children. Why do you do that?
Now, in my humble opinion, as a mom, and I feel personally that it is the parents' job to have sexual talks with their kids and educate them. I don't believe in turning them over to a bishop, a JW elder, or anyone like that to have explicit sexual questions, have them grilled, about their masturbation rituals and stuff like that alone. The parents should be with them in these interviews. And I've said that about Watchtower, and I'll say that about the Mormon church. Parents, be careful. Your child is in there alone. And we have a secretly leaked video, and I want to thank Mormon Leaks for this. It is an 8-year-old who was in an interview, and the father is confronting the bishop, and he is horrified of the questions that were asked his little boy. Now at 8, I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
I was a very naive, good witness child. I didn't know anything. And if an elder would have started asking me some of these questions, I would have been horrified and ran out of the room. I wouldn't have said anything.
Well, at least that's how you would view it now. You don't know really how you would react as an 8-year-old child, because you're being asked questions that your parent probably hadn't even begun to contemplate, at that age, at 8 years old.
No, I knew nothing.
And just real quick, the thing that I found very disturbing about this one same video where they ask all these questions is that at the end you can read the questions and you're going to see that they're going to once again blame the woman.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to blame the girl is what they're going to do.
But, I found these very disturbing, and I just want to mention that, we've done videos, and we know what Watchtower does. They give these type of talks, they have these type of interviews with children or teenagers, and they guilt you. Oh, don't you dare touch yourself, because Jehovah or God is, going to look at you and see you, and, you're going to die at Armageddon. So they guilt you. So look at what it's causing in people, and it's the same thing. If this is what the Mormon church is doing, and then it's repressing. And I know this commenter, we don't know anything about their background or family life or anything. I don't know if you have small children or children, that are up to the age about to go into their interview with the bishop, or maybe you're not married or have any children at all. I don't know.
Well, there again, the comment says, I would never let this kind of language reach my children's ears. So you can assume he's got children.
Okay, so I'm just going to say, do not let your children go in with the interview with the bishop alone. You go with them.
You go with them. And
because you don't know if your bishop is a pedophile or not.
Right, and or take your God-given right to raise your own children and teach them and instruct them yourselves.
Yeah, yep.
The thing that we want to draw from all of this, friends, is that in the world of religions and cults, whatever, there seems to have been this mindset that we have to surrender our own God-given rights to, again, basically strangers. And this is happening everywhere. And the reason why Kim and I are so up to date on this, because we've escaped a cult that does these same very things. And I beg anybody out there to show me one scripture. Show me one scripture from any gospel account where Jesus Christ is instructing little ones on these type of sexual matters. See, even Jesus Christ would leave that to the adult parent.
Yeah. So why don't we play the clips that we have? And like I said, we've edited out some of the more embarrassing questions, that we feel as parents, really shouldn't. I can't even have them on our video, let alone.
No, it's that explicit.
Yeah, it's pretty explicit. So let's play the clips.
Did you know Mormon bishops are simply lay members selected without appropriate training or background checks? Did you know Mormon bishops hold regular private interviews with kids about worthiness, particularly sexual purity? Did you know Mormon bishops are given no restrictions on the type of questions they may ask children? In the absence of such restrictions, members have reported the following questions being asked of them as children by a bishop. Interviews are done in private and considered confidential, so this is usually without parental knowledge. Warning: these questions are explicit. Do you masturbate? Do you know what a vagina is? What were you thinking of while you masturbated? What type of pornography do you watch? Do you masturbate while you watch pornography? Where and how did your boyfriend touch you? Were your nipples hard? Did you know that once boys reach a certain level of arousal, they have no choice but to keep going, that they can no longer stop their sexual advances? Did you like it? What did you do to egg him on? What were you wearing? Did you orgasm? Each of these questions asked to children is allowed by current church policy. Current leaders of the church continue to defend this policy, claiming that it is necessary for the proper spiritual development of children. This is harmful and wrong. Churches that protect children place restrictions on the interactions between children and leaders.
One sentence, 10 words long. No one-on-one interviews. No sexually explicit questions ever.
And we are relentlessly tackling this issue of inappropriate interviews with Mormon leaders about matters of sexuality. We've been wanting to do this for a long time, but the impetus, I'm happy to say, is my former colleague from Houston, Sam Young, Bishop Sam Young, who's decided to start a petition to petition the Mormon Church to no longer allow 12-year-old girls or 12-year-old boys to sit alone with grown men and being, grilled about their masturbation habits or pornography use or sexuality, because it's harmful and damaging. And so we're super grateful to Bishop Sam for leading the charge on this. We want to encourage everybody to sign the petition.
Now, I find it interesting at the end of the first clip, he says that the Mormon Church defends himself by saying that it's their job to shepherd the flock, and to help the kids spiritually, however they want to word it, But I mean, he's perfect. He's right at the beginning. These are not trained men. Same thing with J.W.
Same
elders.
thing with Watchtower.
They are not trained in, psychology or sociology. They don't have any, training on dealing with children. None of that. Like we've said before, these are window washers, talking to people and in these judicial meetings and stuff. So it sounds like it's the same thing with the Mormon Church. These are lay people, that have other jobs, that have no training in talking to your children. And Mormon parents are allowing their children to go in alone and talk to these bishops, and the bishops are asking them these questions. To me, that is disturbing.
Very disturbing.
That is disturbing. So, Mormon parents, please, safeguard your children. Go with them. You have a right to say what your children can and cannot be asked. Even in a police interrogation or interviews with maybe small children that have been abused. they have a child advocate there.
Right.
To make sure the police, the authorities, don't get too technical or personal with the child. So if law, the justice system recognizes this, then shouldn't this be recognized within churches?
Yeah, within the ecclesiastical setting.
Exactly. So now we have the secretly leaked video we're going to put up. And like I said, I want to thank Mormon Leaks for, this video. And I couldn't believe the bishop was defending himself. And apparently, from what the bishop says, the church has this list of questions. This is their policy of these questions they ask your children. To an 8-year-old. I couldn't believe it. And I think this father exhibited a great amount of restraint because, if I would have found out a JW elder had talked to my child alone with these questions, first of all, I never allowed my daughter Shyla to talk alone with elders.
Well, there was a point when my daughter was a regular pioneer and she got behind on her hours, and 2 elders just wanted to talk to her about her being behind on on her hours, pardon me. As her parent and her head, I went in that conversation, into that meeting with her.
And she was 17.
Yeah, and I actually ended up laying the smack down on those 2 damn elders.
Yeah, but see, this is your God-given right as a parent.
Exactly.
I would never allow, her to go in alone with elders. I didn't care who they were.
Yep.
Whenever she had to go into the elders, it was either one of us or both.
Or both of us. Exactly.
Yeah, as a family. Never.
So, when you look at the whole ecclesiastical setting as it pertains to the Bible, we're constantly told that our relationship with Jesus Christ is a one-on-one relationship. But yet at the same time, well, in fact, the Watchtown Bible Tract Society even has a song that says, "Make the truth your own." Well, how can you make any ecclesiastical truth your own when you're continuously surrendering your God-given authority to your bishops, to your elders, and people that are supposedly in higher positions than you? Realize that when it comes to Christ, Paul even talks about an equalization. We all need to start looking at ourselves as being on this equality even with our bishops and with our elders and whatever your church calls your higher-ups.
Yeah. And, we don't want to get into, debating with someone of the LDS, faith, because we've got friends who are Mormons, and we would never, attack them for their beliefs. And we just never attack people for their beliefs. They're entitled to their beliefs. But let's look at the similarities between the Mormon Church and Watchtower, especially when this person says that I would never allow this kind of language to reach my children's ears. And I just want to mention that I have a talk that a bishop gave in public, and I haven't listened to the entire thing yet. And when I do and get a chance to edit it, I will get it put up. But it just happens to be about masturbation and stuff. So when he says that he doesn't even like the word pornography given during their general assembly, well, I've got a talk from a Mormon bishop, and it's, the first few minutes that I've heard, it's like, okay. So that will be coming up, and I hope this person, will have an open mind and listen to these, recorded talks and interviews that we have. So, just so that you will have full disclosure, of what your religion does do, because you may not have heard these.
And just reflecting back on our Mormon friends, I remember one time having a meal with them, and we were talking about cults and Watchtown Bible Tract Society, and I made the statement to them privately, and I'm going to make it publicly right now. No matter what religion you're in, most religions, especially these modern day Christian religions, are driven by men who want to control your lives. And that's one of the identifying marks of a cult. look at the bite model. Does it control your behavior? Does it control the information? Does it control your thought? Does it control your emotions? Chances are you're in a cult. Like those Jehovah's Witnesses that are fully awake and still have to remain inside so they can keep some sort of resemblance of a family structure. Remember, you control the cult. Don't let the cult control you. And in matters such as this, where you're allowing your younger child to go into a room with either 3 elders or 1 bishop on a one-on-one or one-on-3 situation, you take control of that situation. You go with your child. That's how you can control the cult and not let the cult control you.
Exactly. So here is this secretly recorded interview, and we hope you all have a wonderful and safe Labor Day weekend. We love you.
God bless.
Bye.
Oh, okay. I came by to kind of straighten out what happened last week. I guess you talked about. I was kind of upset by some of the things that you said about it.
Okay.
So I wanted to go over the things you said with you.
Okay.
Let's see if we have it. We're on the same page, or it just kind of bothers me that we have to teach our kid about sexual things, about touching himself. I don't think he's ready for it, and I think if we bring it up now, it's going to bring up curiosity, because he knows nothing about it right now, and I don't want to bring that stuff up to him yet. I'm not ready for it, and I don't think he is.
Okay, so I sense that you're not ready for that, and you're saying that he's not ready for that.
Right.
Okay. I appreciate your point of view. I appreciate your concern as your parents, and that is your right to teach your parents as you'll be held accountable for what he's taught or not taught.
Right.
My role as the bishop is to perform the interview. I'm not the one who makes up the questions. I'm not the one who says what is going to be left off an interview or put in an interview. I'm the one who's given the guidelines of what I have to say, but I'm given some leeway on how to say that. Do you have the printout of what I do with the interview?
I see. I read that.
What part of that is your concern?
That you would bring up to him about, other people seeing his private parts, him showing it to other people, or him touching himself.
You know, that's not exactly how it's worded.
That's not in here, but did you say that with what you were going to say?
Yes,
Okay.
I did. And how I say that, and if you'd like me to find it in there, or I can find it online and reprint it.
Okay, I have it right here.
Okay?
Just that we keep it private. Okay.
So you can either read it to me or I can read it back, but that's probably
I read it. The part of the swimming part.
Before she came, she had not read that.
Yeah, we just got this the day before, so we hadn't read over the whole thing.
Right.
Okay.
And so how she approached me was, Bishop, you will not ask this question. And my stance was, well, I'm the bishop. I have a calling, and I've been set apart and sustained as the bishop. And I'm not the one who chooses to do the things. Personally, I would not want to discuss any of that with anybody. But that's not my job. That's not my decision.
Did you feel that she was questioning your authority because she asked the question?
It's the way she presented it to me. Bishop, you will not ask my son that question. I'm sorry, but you can't tell me the questions I have. I pulled out the paper. And if she has a problem with me, I would prefer she come in and discuss it with me, because first of all, my intent is not to offend anyone or to make anyone feel bad. But here are the actual questions that I am supposed to ask. The law of chastity, which prohibits any sexual activity outside the bonds of legal marriage between a man and a woman. Have you been taught that? Or excuse me, you've been taught that membership in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints includes living gospel standards. Do you understand the following standards, and are you willing to obey them? That's the question I have to ask. Now, an 8-year-old, will he understand what the word sexual means? Will he understand what the word relationships outside the bonds of marriage means? Will he understand what between a man and a woman means? No, he won't. So my way that I have asked state president of, is it okay if I do it this way to cover this? And they have said, yes, you may ask. Most children have not been exposed, okay? So that's my explanation. So what I ask is, when you go swimming, why do you wear a swimming suit? Now, a child, boy or girl, can very innocently say, well, we wear swimming suits to cover ourselves. That is correct. We wear swimming suits to cover our private parts. We do not show our private parts. We do not touch our private parts. We do not allow others to see or touch our private parts. Are you willing to obey that as part of the law of chastity?
He's not going to know what that means about touching his private parts.
Okay.
That's going to bring up a lot of questions.
I understand that, but in today's society, we have members who work for the church who have just now been caught and being convicted of molesting children.
Right.
We have kids whose parents molest them. We have neighbor kids who molest neighbor kids. What you're asking me not to do is to ask a question that's part of the baptismal interview that would allow for an opportunity for him to understand something that has happened to him, if it ever has.
My worry is that it will bring up curiosity and possibly experimentation, especially when he asks you what you mean by that. He'll say, of course I touch myself. When I go to the bathroom, I have to touch myself.
That's right. All of us boys do. Now, your job as a dad and your wife's job as a mom is to teach so that when the natural tendency comes, they know it is wrong and they don't do it. Come to church next week, because I have been instructed by the state president to give a whole hour lesson on this subject, because we have 8-year-olds that have come to the attention of the state president who are hardcore pornography viewers. I grew up in Layton, where the neighbor kid will introduce pornography and this to the neighbor kid some 30 years ago. And our friends' sons were one of those who were impacted by that neighbor's action. So my point is, you cannot shelter your children. If you choose not to teach them, that's your choice. But I'm telling you as a bishop, and from what I've had to sit and hear from this side of the desk, and from talking with the other bishops in our stake, and the bishops when I go to the big meeting, you are making a mistake if you do not at least start teaching some aspect of that by the time they're 8 years old. And sometimes it needs to be 5 and 6 years old. So, I mean, I don't know what your wife told you, but she misrepresented what she was told by the primary president, what she told me. Because I went to the primary president and said, what did you say? So, right now, I have a concern. And so I'm sharing back with you my concern, that misrepresentation that occurred.
Okay.
I will not ask the questions if you choose not to have him come in to be baptized for the interview. That's your choice. But if he does come in, I will ask, why do we wear swimsuits? Are you willing not to show your private parts? And the reason I'm asking that is because even at 8, Satan is working his hardest to influence kids. And you cannot shelter the kids enough in your home that prevents every evil influence that can get to a child from getting to that child. Be it a radio, be it a television, be it even commercials for kids' cartoons. They have sexual innuendos in those that we don't recognize unless you actually sit down and analyze what's happening. So I'm coming back forcefully because I've been on this side of the table when I've got people confessing problems. I've been on this side of the table, not this actual table, but talking to a bishop who says, I have a child who's been masturbating since he was 9 years old, did not know what it was, and now I can't get him to repent and change because he didn't know at the time it was wrong, and the parents never knew what was happening. And now he can't go on a mission because he can't break that habit. So when you sit here and tell me these are all the emotions that I'm going through because I have other experiences, and your family may be perfect. You may never have a problem with any of this, and I hope your kids never do have molestation, see pornography in any form, or have those feelings and intents that Satan will put in a kid's heart. I hope that you guys are immune from that. But that's where I'm coming from. And if I don't carry out my duty, I'm going to be held responsible. Just as you, as parents, are going to be held responsible if your children are not taught. You're taking care of your side. I have to take care of my side.
Okay.
So that's the thing that your wife and I tried to talk about, and I don't know if I got through. And I probably upset her immensely, and I apologize if I upset her. But I don't dare stand in this position at this time until they release me and not fulfill my calling and duty. Because frankly, I don't want anybody else's problems on my head. I've got enough of my own.
Right. I'm sure you see your share of the good, bad, and the ugly stuff that comes in here. The stuff you have to deal with.
I love the good. The bad and the ugly, I sit and think, how could we have prevented this? And you know what? The problem that I keep facing is parents weren't involved. Because, well, I'll just tell you straight out. They didn't believe that their little Johnny or little Susie would ever do that. Or two, they just ignored the signs that were there. And the kids are too precious, too innocent to have somebody else outside of mom and dad teach them. One of the hardest things I've ever done is to take my 8-year-old and start initiating the birds and the bees. And you know what? They knew more than what I was trying to teach them about. And we just kind of went, well, who talked to them? Because we've never broached that subject. So that's my concern.
Okay. I guess the way I see it is similar, but I think that each child should be based on each child basis. We don't try to shelter our kids. We don't want them to be naive. We want them to know what's going on. But at the same time, we try to have an active role in teaching them everything that we're supposed to and keeping them from the evils of the world, not necessarily sheltering them, but keeping them pure and innocent. And
the innocence is not there anymore.
At 8 years old.
The world is not allowing kids to be innocent.
But it hasn't gotten to our children. I'm not naive about that. I know there's a lot of bad things out there, but we homeschool our kids. We know which friends they hang out with. We're very selective on who babysits them. We're involved in almost every part of their lives, especially this young.
Congratulations. You're doing a fabulous job, but you're missing something.
But they're still innocent. They're little children.
At 8, they become accountable. And
right.
There's an influence out there that you cannot counter except by actively teaching and pursuing. Satan knows your children because he lived with them in the pre-earth life. He knows their weaknesses. He knows their tendencies. And no matter what you're going to do to protect them, he's going to find ways to attack their character and chinks in their armor.
They'll make mistakes.
I'm not talking about mistakes. I'm talking about Every influence that you said you're doing to protect your children, that's wonderful. Keep it up. But that's not enough. It's not.
Well, what else can I do? I do teach them what they need to know.
And that's what my point that I'm trying to get across is. We think, well, I didn't even know half these words when I was a teacher when we had the first bishop meeting and talked about these things. It scared the daylights out of me. Kids, not only at 14, not only know all about that stuff, they're participating in many of that stuff. We've had to move, and this is from the state president, this is not the bishop speaking. State president says we are having to move these topics down and lower. I have to talk with every parent about their children masturbating at 11 years old. That's next week. Do you think I'm embarrassed? Do you think I'm worried about that? That's at 11. And at 11, it's already a problem. So, I have parents who have been just like you. We've protected our children, we've watched everything, and they're the ones who come back 6 months later and say, Bishop, I'm sorry. Our children, we don't know. And they are good, solid parents. And I think, what happened? Did they fail as parents? Well, theoretically, you could say they did. But Satan is there. Satan's dominion is there. Those feelings and urges are maturing in children at such a young age. You've got kids who are pre-junior high school who are able to get pregnant. Those hormones that are changing at a younger age bring feelings and emotions of confusion. And you know your children. You know what you need to teach them. But I still feel strongly that this is not inappropriate for this age to make sure that they know that, one, you shouldn't look at other people's private, you shouldn't touch other people's private, and you should never allow anyone to touch yours. Have you ever allowed your child to go into a restroom by themselves? Someday you will have to. And you better hope that they're armed, that if some guy approaches them, they know how to appropriately respond.
We have talked to him about those things. It's just my point that I feel really weird about having someone else talk to him about it alone with him. And I don't know how he's going to react and how he's going to take it. How
I explained it to your wife is we talk about it, and every child is usually embarrassed about swimming suits and private parts. Then I invite the parent to come back in, and we go through exactly the same questions all over again, only now I'm coaching, what did you tell me? Tell your parent. What did you tell me? Tell your parent. So that they are telling you what they told me.
Sure.
That way there is nothing that we discussed that you are not aware of that was discussed, how it was discussed, and how they perceived it. That empowers the parent to know, okay, I need to touch up on this, I need to worry about this, I need to explain this. I have kids that come in here who don't know what the law of tithing is, who've never heard what the word of wisdom is. So
sure.
I know every child at 8 is not familiar with the word law of chastity because I've got 12-year-olds coming in here who don't know what that term means. So I can be delicate. I have 4 boys. I've raised 4 boys past this stage. And it is not easy to talk about it. But I can tell you that it's easier after you've talked to them about it to have them come to you with a concern or problem in the future than for them to come and say, what's this? What's going on? So, as I told your wife, this is Bishop Council. You are free to choose to do what you will or what you will with that. I am not your parent of your child, but I am required to go through the baptismal. Now, if you'd rather I read those directly, that's my option. But I don't feel comfortable of that with an 8-year-old.
Right.
But everybody I talk to about this, that is appropriate for that age. So, I apologize if I offended your wife. I apologize if I've come over strongly to you, but I'm mandated by my calling and direction from the state presidency to be direct. You want me to pull out the mission questions that are now being asked?
Have they changed?
Oh, yeah. The letter that I send out to a year before a kid goes on the mission, have you ever had any touchings of a girl? Have you ever dated a girl? Have you ever felt any homosexual tendencies? Have you ever masturbated at all ever in your life? Have you ever seen pornography ever in your life? Okay, these are 17, 18-year-olds who are being asked these questions that were only asked when I was going in for a marriage interview.
Right.
So it's shifted down. So if you don't feel comfortable with me asking those questions, that's your choice. I think you're making a mistake by delaying baptism. Heaven forbid, should he be killed in a car accident, that's something that you'll have to deal with.
Are you saying he's going to go to hell if he doesn't get baptized right away?
No, I'm just saying that's additional work that will have to be performed in his behalf after he's passed away. Is not 8 the age of accountability?
That's what the scriptures say.
Okay. Is not 8 the age that each child or person becomes accountable for their action? Is not age 8, once you're baptized, when you can take the atonement and apply it to your life through weekly taking the sacrament?
Sure.
So a person who's not baptized when they're 8 and they become accountable, who's going to become accountable for their actions, thoughts, and deeds at that point?
The parents.
The parents. So your wife and yours concerns about teaching your children, I believe, pale in comparison to what is at stake that you're making these decisions for. I've had little girls in here who had no idea what we've talked about, who were very comfortable with saying, well, yeah, I was on a swimsuit.
Do you have to ask the girls the same question about
Identical.
touching themselves?
I say it in such a manner that those kids don't pick up on it. But if they had ever been abused, the door is then open that the Spirit can prick their heart, and they could then say, oh, yeah, I had somebody, and I dread that ever happening, but it's there. And unfortunately, in today's society, it happens. And parents don't always know. So the way I ask it is, when you go swimming, why do you wear a swimsuit? We wear swimsuits to cover our private parts. We don't let others see our private parts. We don't touch our private parts or touch other people to see other people's private parts. That's what law chassis. Are you willing to do that? And most every kid, it goes right above their head. Well, yeah, I'll wear my swimsuit when I go swimming. That's the way I do it. That's delicate enough. Most kids understand it. And it's the parents who are embarrassed that I'm talking about masturbation and talking about other things along that line. Now, 4 years ago, I would have been extremely embarrassed to even say that word.
Right.
So you can see that this calling, this position, has put me in a position where I'm not comfortable with it, but I understand the importance of it. Because I've had too many kids sit in that chair right there and say, I want to get married in the temple, or I want to go on a mission, or I want to be ordained this. And I have to say, I'm sorry, but you're not worthy. It's 6 months before a kid can even be interviewed to go on a mission if he's ever participated in that and not repented of it fully. So I hope I'm getting across the severity and the church's position.
Yeah, I understand the severity of it, and I see where you're coming from. I just have to think about it. Then when we're ready for him to be able to talk about those things, we can go forward.
I think you're putting too much emphasis on this as a parent concerned than letting the Spirit of the Lord direct what the interview is actually for and about.
I would just like to be able to teach him those things when he is ready for it. And I don't think there's any way he's ready for that.
Have you talked to the other parents who've had all their children go through this and that time?
A lot of my friends that had their kids baptized recently, their interviews were really simple. They just asked them if they believed in Jesus, and they didn't ask every question.
No, then they're not doing their job.
Okay. I just don't think that the policy should be correct in every instance with every child. I don't think... I wanted to know what was right. I wanted to know what the church's stance was on this, and from what you told me, it sounds like it's changed a little bit. It's gotten a little more strict, saying more things to younger kids about sex.
This is what I ask. You know what? If you would like to go talk to the state president, I would love to refer you to talk to him.
Okay.
And you can ask him, take my letter, say, this is what the bishop was going to discuss.
Yeah, it's not you. We don't have a problem with you at all.
Well,
it's just the policy that confuses us and that bothers us. The one thing I did pull up, and if it's changed, it's changed, but the church used to say that that sex education was the sole responsibility of the parents, and that it can't be shifted to the church.
Mm-hmm. So am I teaching it?
Well, you're bringing it up where it could make him curious about it.
Then whose responsibility is it to teach it?
Well, we want to teach him, but just not yet. We want to wait till we feel it's the right time.
And when's that?
When the Lord directs.
Do you feel the Lord could direct me to bring these up in the question?
Well, I think that my role as a parent, I would have the right to teach him first.
Yes, you do. And my counsel as the bishop is, if you wait till after he's 8, you've waited too long.
How much do you...
You can take that how you will.
How much do you suggest that I teach him at 8 years old?
Do you ever go swimming with your children? Do you have them wear swimming suits? When they run around the house butt naked, do you tell them to go put clothes on? At that age, that's sufficient. Boys will touch themselves. They need to know that it's okay when you go in the bathroom. I don't know exactly how you want to touch it, but we've had to very delicately talk to our kids, you don't play with yourself.
Sure, and we told them that.
Then you've already taught him more than what I cover in this letter.
Right. I just don't want it brought up with other people. He doesn't know you that well. He doesn't relate well, the teachers, and that's about it. And it's just going to be...
Then I'm very sad that he doesn't know the bishop well enough to know a bishop's interview, because his whole life he'll be asked very embarrassing questions by men he barely knows that are his priesthood leaders.
Well, he's only 7 and we've only been here for a year.
He's been in here to get treats from me. I've seen him in the hall. I've talked to him at standing up in the primary. He knows me probably better than some of the other kids I've done interviews who aren't members of the Lord, much other than just, well, the parents don't come. So, I'm sorry, but I can counter all of your arguments. 1, because I've heard a lot of them before. And 2, I'm not gonna budge. I'm not going to be responsible for not asking the appropriate questions when I have been given the mantle. You've already taught your children these aspects. We just discussed that. I don't go into depth. And put off's not the right word. I'm a little offended that you don't trust me as a bishop to know sensitively how to cover these subjects at an age-appropriate age.
Yeah, we're not upset at you at all. It's the policy that we don't agree with. We think that the church should respect the wishes of the parents.
So go ahead and write the first presidency, and you tell him, go to the state president, and if I'm out of line, you can bet he will come down, and not only will he address this bishop, but he'll call a bishop's meeting, and all of us bishops will be put back in line. But I'm telling you from my meetings previously, and from my writing up and my discussions with what he's having us talk about, 8, 9, 10, 11, what age are you saying is the appropriate age for them to be taught this?
It depends on the kid.
Okay. That is not the way we have been instructed as bishops.
Why do we have to do it exactly that way as parents? Like, I feel like I'm forced to talk to him about masturbation before his 8-year-old interview for baptism, and I don't want to.
That's the way you guys are interpreting it because of your nervousness in discussing it. You've already told me you've talked to your son about not touching himself. You've already talked to him about wearing clothes. That's the extent of the interview question. Do I use the M word is what it said? Never. Never. That's not age appropriate. Now when they're 12 and they're going to deacon's camp, I'll bring up a little more forcefulness. When they're a teacher, 14, 15 years old, you bet I'm hitting them pretty heavy because they're seeing friends at school looking at inappropriate stuff. They're seeing their friends laugh and joke about inappropriate stuff. My concern is if we don't teach him at a younger age, Saint's not giving up. He's not pulling back and, well, yeah, that child's not ready to be taught that, or that deacon's, he'll never do that. Well, Satan's going to make sure that those opportunities are presented. And the only way you can count that is to be taught. And so if you're doing your job, teaching them, then I won't have any worries. But your teaching your children doesn't relieve me of my responsibility. And yeah, I feel really strongly that they need to understand there are basic modesty, law of chastity issues at 8 years old to be baptized. Why do you think we shut the curtains when the kids come out of the water to be baptized? Well, they're dripping wet and white clothes become more see-through. It's a modesty issue.
Sure.
So, I mean, I am sensitive to these things. But do you feel you have to teach your child all the aspects about masturbation before he has an interview with me? That's your choice. But I'm saying your perceptions are incorrect if we go into that. If you've read the whole letter, you understand that there's 2 sentences, maybe 3 sentences. This is advice to the parents. The actual sentence that I say, I've already repeated twice.
Okay.
So, how you choose to go forward, that's your choice. Again, I apologize if I've offended your wife. I apologize if I've offended you. But I'm not going to apologize for the stewardship that I have to maintain. I've got kids I really love that I would like to see on missions. But yeah, I've got kids who I'd like to see have temple reckoning or be ordained or any slew of other things. But they can't. I've got good friends whose married children are now struggling in their marriages because of something that happened when they were 6, 7, 8 years old. And that is heart-wrenching for them and for us who love that family.
I'm sure it is.
And I also have good friends who homeschool. I know all about that. I don't know if you know the She's a big leader in homeschool. Otherwise, her kids are now.
I think my wife's met her before.
Fabulous lady. More outspoken than anyone else you want to know on that and any other subject that she's passionate about.
Yeah.
But she's talked about how you still can't protect your children from all the influences. As much as I'd like to say all the kids in primary are angels, they are not. And to come to church, they'll be associating with kids who are probably not as well behaved as they should be.
Sure.
And if you sat and watched the commercials that kids watch between cartoons, I don't know. I'm presuming you have a TV in the home.
We canceled our cable, so we just let them watch movies and cartoons that we have on DVDs and things like that.
That's safer. We actually didn't have the television for many, many years growing up. Didn't miss it at all.
That's good.
It wasn't until the kids started getting into sports, and actually my wife was bedridden for almost a month or so for one child, that we finally bought a television because she was just going stir crazy. And it was a VCR and a television. The point is, I commend you on your desire to protect your children. But Satan's going to find a way to get around that. He always has, always will. And so you can only counter it by teaching instruction and praying like crazy and hoping that the child's choices, because we still believe in free agency. We can't force our kid. They'll make the right decisions. So my point is, you tell me when he's ready to be baptized. I think he's ready as soon as he turns 8.
Okay. We'll let you know.
Okay. And please, my concern is your words are, we don't agree with the church policy. I believe there's a living prophet. I believe the living prophets advise apostles. I believe that apostles advise stake presidents. And I believe that stake presidents advise bishops. And I believe bishops advise elders, quorum presidents, high priest group leaders, relief site presidents. And that's the chain of how the Lord organizes his church. Do I always agree with every policy the church has always had? No, but it's my will that's always been out. And as I get more knowledge and more information, I understand that I'm the one who needs to conform with the way the Lord has his established doctrines, teachings, and whatever. That's all I'm going to say about that. You're welcome to go to the stake president. Take him a letter and say, we feel this is inappropriate for the bishop to discuss that. And if he gives me the waiver, I will gladly skip that sentence or whichever offending part it is so that he can be baptized as soon as possible.
But he is the one that taught you.
He's the one who is counseling us, bishop, and I'm taking his counsel, and this is my interpretation of
that question.
The question is, are you willing, what do you understand of the following standard? So I'll say, okay, Colin, what do you understand about the law of chastity? And he will say, I don't know what that means. And then I'll say, it prohibits any sexual relationship outside the bonds of legal marriage between a man and a woman. And he's going to look at me with a blank stare because he's not going to know what any of those words. I don't mind giggle at sexual because kids hear that word. Even though we don't teach it in homes, it gets heard. Are you willing to obey that? And now he's going to be asking me, what does that word mean? What does this mean? What does that have to do with being married? And that is where I think it becomes harder because now I'm explaining something that the parents should have explained. By posing the question this way, it's the most delicate way I can find to ask the question for that age group that makes it relevant. Unless you come up with a different example.
I don't know.
Because every parent I've talked to, just like you and your wife, have taught them, well, no, we wear swimsuits. well, no, we don't touch. So I'm asking you, is there another way to fulfill the requirement?
Well, that's the part I don't agree with. With some kids, maybe if you knew they're having problems with the parents knew and they'd let you know about that. But I would rather, honestly, not bring that up to them, at least not by another person.
So let me change this then. Let's switch that sexual out for a word of wisdom. Mom and Dad drink beer. Mom and Dad like a cup of coffee. So do I not ask that question?
That's kind of different.
I don't see it differently because it's a standard of the church.
That's the principle of the gospel.
It's not law, chastity, principle of the gospel.
Yes, but sex education or just even briefly mentioning something about masturbation when they're that young, I don't like it.
How can you teach the principles without them understanding the basis behind it? And it's not the word masturbation they're taught.
Sure.
The point that I'm trying to get across is you and your wife have already taught them to be modest and to not touch. You're nodding your head yes. This is the third time I've asked this.
So why do you have to ask them about that? Right.
That's why.
Okay.
It's a standard of the church. That's what sets us apart from most other religions is our stance on the law of chastity. I'm sorry you don't agree with it. I'm more sorry that you don't understand the reasoning behind all of that, because in our discussion I've given the feeling you don't.
Trying to, that's why I came. Didn't want to be upset and not come to you about it.
And you know what? Thank you. Because more often when I offend people, they stew about it and it really eats into their souls, and I never get a chance to find out what's going on. How did I offend? My purpose is not to offend on purpose. But as the bishop, I was counseled very early on, you're going to offend people just because you're the bishop. I have a mantle I have to wear, and until they release me, I have to fulfill those responsibilities and obligations that I am. Command is not the right word, but I have to do it. Just like you have to take care of your children. I can't see you or your wife ever walking away and abandoning your children. Why? Why couldn't you do that? Other people do that. Why do I not see you and your wife doing that? Because you love them. You care for them. You're concerned for them. It's the same feelings that this bishop has towards the ward members. And I would rather offend people by cutting to the point than being guilty of not doing the duty or saying the things, because when I meet him, I want to be able to say, I did my best. I followed what I was asked to do to the best of my ability. And for those places I failed, please forgive me. This is an easy one. In fact, I'm actually really surprised how far this has gotten. Because I've usually been able to explain to the other parents to the point where they see that it's a valid question, and the way I've approached it in the paper that you have is least embarrassing for me, least intrusive for that child, and gives the parents the maximum opportunity to go with it how they will. So,
Okay.
let me get you a piece of paper. number. He is the stake executive secretary. Just call him. He'll make an appointment. You can be sure that I will be called in by the stake president, and he'll discuss with me what you discuss with him, and he'll tell me the resolution. But if you feel comfortable that after you hear from him, you come talk to me, just know that I will be called back to talk to him about it, because if one member of the stake has a concern, then all the bishops will hear about that concern.
Okay.
And if they redirect, I will comply with what they say. It may become harsher. He may say, Bishop, you're not carrying the intent far enough. So,
Okay.
there you have it. No, I will bring it up to the stake president and say that you have a concern with this, and that you're choosing not to have the interview go forward because of, and I'll give him a copy of my letter and say, stake president, do I need to change this? I have actually all the bishops have a meeting with him next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. So I'll bring that forward and make sure that I'm still following the directions I've been given. Are you comfortable with that?
That's fine.
Okay. So, just so you know, it's not who is doing this out of his own volition.
I understand that.
Because if I don't have to ask those questions, I'm more comfortable not.
Okay.
Anything else I can do for you?
I think that's it.
Okay. I do appreciate you coming and talking to me. And I know I've done a lot of the talking, because since your wife came in, I have thought about this a real lot. And so I don't want what I do as a bishop to impact your family, your future, your activities in church, whatever you have. The church doctrine, the teachings of our Savior, is the most important thing. And you guys are doing your best to teach your family, and I applaud you. It is not easy going the route that you guys are going. And I recognize that you're choosing a harder path because you want the best for your children. I can't fault that. You're doing a great effort. It's hard. I've watched that. I've watched other families, the Youngs who moved out. They chose to homeschool their children.
Yeah.
It is not easy. And here the stats, the kids who are homeschooled actually do extremely well.
That's what attracted us to it.
So, just don't be upset with the church policies. No, that's just the way things are. So,
Okay.
are you okay?
Yeah. We'll think about it. We'll pray about it. So I'm not going to make any rash decisions.
That's good. And he doesn't turn 8. No,
The end of the month.
yeah. So,
Okay.
we're all rooting for you. We want your family to be a celestial, eternal family again. If we as parents could take care of that without a church organization, you know that the Lord would have it set up that way. Because that's what all that's about.
Mm-hmm.
But in society today, the Lord, He's organized the church. We can't. So, I go around appointing and disappointing people with the bishop stuff. And, like I said, convey to her my apologies if I offended her. That was not the intent. Anything else to say?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Appreciate you talking to me.
Oh, this is easy stuff.
Yeah.
It's
Right. Yeah.
It's, we don't want to come to church anymore. What do we do? And that's what Satan's want. So, it's a cute family. The boys will be obnoxious and rambunctious. That's just it. But that's just fine. That's the Lord compensates for our efforts on that. And I say that because I've got 4 boys.
Right.
And I was the naughty one in our family. I was the one crawling under the benches, over the benches, yelling and screaming. And
all right. Well, thank you.
Serious. If you can come up with an easier way for me to fulfill this and still get it across, I'm open for suggestions.
Okay.
But in talking with other bishops, it's that, wow, you've actually found a delicate way to ask the questions, to approach it, so that if there is a problem, it comes out.
Right.
And, I hate the way society is now because it is forcing our hand.
Yeah. It makes us sad to have to do that.
Yeah, just take President spent 2 hours and that's when he gave us the assignment for the topic for next week. He says, bishops, you need to recognize that Satan has stepped up his war. We haven't stepped up our defense. So, yeah, I'm actually really worried about how I'm supposed to cover, how I'm supposed to teach parents about the masturbation, about the pornography, about all the things that are going on that our age and older refuse to accept because it's so foreign to us.
Right.
But it's actively discussed and talked about in their music, in the movies, and in the gyms. Society teaches it's all fine and it's okay. And if I'm part of forcing the hand of parents to address that a little bit earlier, I'm not going to apologize because I don't think it's too young at 8. And I keep referring back to that parent who came with just your concerns, and then they came back 6 months later and they found out some things were happening that they didn't know. And their tone was, much different.
I'm sure.
And I hope you don't have to experience that.
Right.
But there's bishops who've talked to me that the parents were so naive, would not talk about it, wouldn't discuss it, that their child is now engrossed in horrible addiction. That's the word I can think of, addiction, that child can't get out of. And now that the parents are becoming aware of it, they can't deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Mentally, they just can't understand it. So
it's gotten too far.
It is. And that child will probably never, will never go through the rest of their life without the chains of addiction tugging on them one way or another. I don't know what else to say. Just, I hear that poor bishop, and I think I just don't want to have any of that going on. I've got enough problems already without it that severe. So, keep up your good work. Be the good dad. Have your wife be the good wife. And I hope everything goes fine. But it's like, you buy insurance not because you know the house is going to burn down. It's because if it's going to burn down.
Right.
You just got to prepare. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I'll see you next Sunday in Priestess. Library will be closed.
What is?
Yeah, I want you guys in there. So you'll hear more of why my concerns are. This is the state directive.
Okay.
Take care. Thanks for coming. Thank you.